I want to open with a poem for Phil and his brother, and for Marcia and their families. And this is a poem I actually read in weddings as well, but it's about universal love. We give others what we love. I need my glasses. Sorry. I turned 61 this year. So. Closer to the microphone. Okay, how's that? Is that better? Okay. Okay. We give others what we love. Because we give others what we love, nothing is wasted. Between us, a rhythm, the wing beat of an eagle, our hearts surging skyward. And though we come timid among stars in the different shapes of God, of ourselves, we offer everything for the pleasure of this rising, for the pleasure of loving. I will read two more poems from this book called Color Voices Place, which unfortunately, and kind of cool, is out of print. We sold every single copy, so that's a plus. And this is a book that Tony Wynn and John Sosa and I did together in the Central Coast as a celebration of our time together. We did a weekly workshop for more than a year. We'd come together at each other's home and feast first for about an hour and a half, and then we'd get down to business, and we'd each bring a stack of poems, and we worked and worked and worked, and this book is what came of it. So I want to read a couple from here. And because it's September and it's just about the solstice, I'll read this. September prayer. Spirit, thank you for this night as the full moon blankets the land where I live and deep blue mystery above. Thank you for the stars that reach the wide space of the universe, each in its own fluid radiance. Thank you for the 3 deer stepping like a whisper to nip late summer nectar under old oaks outside my window, and for the song of crickets, constant until sleepy owls hoot, bringing the dawn sky. Thank you, Spirit, for the sacred breath of life, the ears I have to hear you, the eyes you have given me to see, and this tender heart of mine to feel you forever around me. There is I always say this word wrong, epigram? Is that what's at the beginning of a verse, or epigraph? Okay, I always get that wrong. Okay, there is an epigraph to this. The title is The Secret of Stones, epigraph. The soul comes from the stars and returns to the stellar regions. Carl Jung. Before rocks took the brilliance of stars out of their darkness, before snakes knew nowhere else to live and made their journey from water to enter the homes of small animals, before our eyes could see the limits of things, our arms embraced the fury of wind, and we heard our names break out of the dome of the universe. It was then we saw the wings of doves glisten under sunlight. It was then we let our hands slip through the moon and sun of each other, and time escaped its hours. What we begin to know when our bodies touch, is older than everything and floats untethered to the waiting sky. Thank you. I'll pass this around. This is a very cool picture of me and Tony and John when we were, 20-something years younger, I think. This book was made in 97, 98, 97, so 20 years ago, yeah. I lived in Santa Barbara for 30 years, and I was a docent at the Museum of Natural History there for 8 of those years, and I love that place with all my heart. And I studied about the Chumash Indians quite extensively, and their culture, their history, their spirit, everything about them. And they were part of the Channel Islands years and years and years ago. And I've written this poem. This is the oldest thing I'm reading tonight. This is from the 80s, but Cynthia Anderson asked me to read this. She made me promise I would read this because she likes this poem. I said, okay, Cynthia. So I use the Chumash names for the islands at the beginning, and then toward the end, I use the Chumash word for the canoe, which is tamal. Listen to the names the islands gave the Indians: Tucon, Wima, Limu, Anyapa. Women, bare-breasted and brown as oak trunks in warm rain, squat over hot slabs of stone, pouring and stirring gruel for their men coming home. Sometimes the women look up, away from the hot waves of smoke, look out to the sea, across the dolphin channel, carrying gold grass birthed from summer slopes and acorns for their dark women. The men, strong-armed and strong-willed, trace their way to the beach, where the heron's flight color merges with sea-wet air. The men stand, feet deep in sunlightened sand, holding back a longing to stay on this dream-spirited ground. The water churns in front of them. They know the dolphins dance. Their voice is the whale's song hummed to the depths. Through sun-soaked white waves, their women's songs arrive, spun along the mainland. Woven like pine baskets, they catch each sound, each movement. They hold the music of the elements, the wind, the sea falling and rising, the fire in their lovers' eyes. To come home from the coast, the men wait for the tide, wait for silent waters, wait for the moon to circle white and full. Leaning on sand and warm water, they push the tamal without effort towards home. Thank you. And now we're going to the desert where I live now. I live in the high desert of Arizona, Sedona. And it was hard. It was hard to go to the desert, and I only went there for love over there. And I'm still there for love. And so I wrote this poem to myself. It was a healing for me to leave the coast, to leave this air, this beauty over here, and to go to another beautiful place. Don't get me wrong, Sedona is gorgeous, but there's no ocean air. and it's part of my soul. What can I say? So I wrote this, and I became friends with the desert to a certain degree. Sonora. Before you come to the desert, let everything dreamed in blue water rise into an even bluer sky. Give away metaphors of owl's clover, Mariposa lily, and California poppy. They are no use to you in this shrewd landscape. Do not think of sacrifice. You are just the latest one the stars have collected in this wilderness of heat. All that bound your knowledge to one place now lives in spindly Ocotillo and Choya. Your new life fledges in incandescent light. Forget each season, your days touched by the agile sun. Forget the texture of grass in emerald hills, wind blown along the coast, where wings of curlews and brown pelicans fan inland the scent of Pacific Ocean. The spirit of saguaros sustains you now. This land only insinuates green and nights of cool reverie. The weight of your own holiness is a balance worth praying for. You must be brave to kneel in the desert, where the huge white moon opens for you. Come, offer all your fading stories to the nighthawk and cactus wren. Let them teach you to love this ground as you love what you almost remember. Come with empty hands, press them into this dry earth. It calls you home. This next poem came out of a dream a few years ago, but I think it speaks to and is relevant to our times today of the chaos that we all feel individually somehow and certainly collectively. And so I tried to make it lighthearted. Mercy and Christopher. Jenny asked me to read this. She's dressed in brown suede and stiletto boots, diaphanous wings tucked nicely, ready for anything. The angel of mercy rides a Harley down 42nd Street, Venice Boulevard, the Champs-Élysées, and Main Street in every city and town with her lover, Saint Christopher, wind blowing his dark locks, no helmet for him. He wears black leather chaps studded with silver Indian head nickels that flash under the neon moons and suns of this world. Fringe flaps whip the smooth alabaster legs of the adventurous angel behind him. They tour the countryside, stopping at all the nameless crossroads near you, in the middle of nowhere or smack in the center of your encumbered life. What will you say when the blessed couple arrives? They'll meet you wherever you want, so line up with your burdens of heart and mind that won't let you sleep. Mercy and Christopher know what to do. They signed for this job long before any of us discovered how easy it is to fall from grace. That swoosh sound you remember wasn't you tripping over your too long wings and plummeting to earth. No, you deliberately stepped off the edge and slipped through the constellations, then clouds on the way down. Who knew the landing would be here? So now you wander the weather of your destination. You signed for this. But hey, no need to go it alone. Here's where Mercy and Christopher come in. They tire of riding that shiny hog and want something better to do. Besides, Mercy has her own saddlebags of sadness. She sheds like a snake, carving a new season as she hugs her man close. When you can't fathom another day, what will you give up? Imagine feeling the way you did that day you stepped out among the stars, so trusting, accepting everything. Glide again easy, glide again easy. I am slowly working on a series of poems for my family, and this is part of it is a series of poems for my mother, and this is one verse of, I see 4, but we'll see what happens with it. And it's a broadside up here. I have a few broadsides available. This is called A Fig is Like a Tortilla, is Like a Raven. My mother turned the masa on the wooden board, one ancestral world after another spilling from her hands. This mound of flour, leavening, water, lard, and a pinch of salt became the full moon of our history. In the way my grandmother taught her, she flattened small orbs of dough between her hands and rolled out silky white discs the size of old terracotta plates, hung them over the formica countertop to wait their turn, heated the burnished cast iron skillet, black as a raven and her mother's hair, cooked them one by one on each side until they became a satin indulgence to share. We ate the homemade frijoles and tortillas while memories of when our Olmec and Aztec kin loved each other tumbled back with each bilingual bite. Who can count the tortillas my mother made? We were 9, a family closer to the Mayan cosmos of our ancestors than we knew. Each of us born from the universe of our mother's heart, each of us tethered to her orbit of bigger dreams. Thank you. This is my most recent poem. And Jenny has heard it. Curanderas want to have fun too. What sweet curves you have, my husband writes. A compliment, but more like something the wolf would say to Little Red Riding Hood. He writes other things about the weather, what went wrong or right in the world while we slept, astrological aspects for the casino that day, my chances to win, maybe, maybe not. Some days, my wallet empties at penny slots that flash dazzling neon lights. I see it as sharing with my ancestors who walked from the Salt River to the Verde, remaking a home in this high desert, the landscape of their history. But back to my curves. My husband calls me his Mesoamerican beauty, knowing my shape is my lineage, carried ounces and pounds through the days. His shamanic eyes see the curanderas of my family walking in progression towards me, giving me the medicine needed to help this ailing planet. I see them shift, take the forms of clay vessels and figurines 2,300 years old, hold them in my healing hands and listen. In these moments, all is right with the world. Just like when my husband looks at me and says, "Come here, my Mesoamerican beauty." And I do. And I will share that the image of the vessels and figurines being 2,300 years old is very real. I have these vessels in my home that were a gift from Spirit, from a gallery owner who said, "These are for you." Wow. And I use them in my healing work and in ceremony. They're truly amazing. And they are my heritage. They're very, very special. Constellations are born this way. The heart can change course in an instant. Ambivalent as the face of a half moon, connected only to the water it draws, as it swims in the black tide night. Not knowing whether to wax or wane, the heart in turmoil must wait out the forces that brought it to this place. Radiant as any star, shy as a deer, my heart grazes in the wispy light of morning until it warms, ignites in blue flame, and lifts into soft air like a young heron spreading its glory quietly over these troubling days. Spring is about to enter here. Shoots of purple crocus along wet northern coasts take in what light is growing on the horizon. Nothing will be unchanged. Water spills back down out of cleansing clouds. My heartbeat has a new, clear voice. Minute by minute, there is more. To feed the soul, one must open the heart, allow everything to enter, blown, shaken by the invisible breath of the universe. The heart will change its course for magnificent pleasure or magnificent pain. Minute by minute, I know there is more. Constellations are born this way. Thank you. When I lived in the Central Coast after I left Santa Barbara, I was blessed to live on a 40-acre ranch, which was a very healing place for me. I had healed from a life-threatening illness while I lived in Santa Barbara, and I knew I needed a really quiet place, and this place opened up to me. The people invited me to be there. I didn't even know these people. But I lived there for 6.5 years, and all the poems in Color Voices Place for me, for my section, were written on that land. And it was very healing, very powerful time. And I wrote this poem, and I dedicate it to everyone in this room. In the name of silence, this whisper. Your name is the moon on water in daylight. And though it is a shadowy whisper, Hear how clearly the sound undulates right in front of you. Think how it knew the voice of your skin and where to find you long before you claimed your first breath. Don't pretend not to hear or reason the call is for someone else. Move closer to it. Hold this smooth roundness in your hands. It is yours alone. Now sip. This is what you asked for. Now sip on the sweetness the rest of your life. I would like to end with this poem, which, for me, taking the poem I just read, and for each of us really owning who we are in our hearts and in our souls as we walk this earth, we walk our path, and we see everybody we see and meet everybody we meet, and even the stranger. This next poem to me is what it's about to be alive. And so I take that first poem as a dedication to you, and then ask that you take this one out into your world. What the heart knows, with an epigraph. The human heart is vast enough to contain all the world. Joseph Conrad. If this is true, then every story that comes ashore is ours. If this is true, then our empathy is natural as breathing. If this is true, then we see ourselves in the eye of another. If this is true, then we can only speak tenderly, even to the stranger. If this is true, then our home is haven for the lost. If this is true, then at our table we shall remember to feast with many. If this is true, then we shall look after each other along the way, for the heart's journey is the world's, and the path is toward the light. Thank you so much for this evening. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.